Hello and welcome back to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today we are going to be doing a bit of work in Silhouette Studio. So first of all, if you go into help, you can see viewing, and if you have something other than the basic Silhouette Studio, you can change between different views. Now to start with, I'm going to be in the standard view, but as I work through you'll probably find that I swap between different views. So, welcome to the Studio interface. We have four main tabs up in this top right corner. So we have the Design, Store, Library and Send tabs. And they're pretty straightforward as to what they are. Design is literally what you're designing. Store is the online store. Library is all the library of your own files. And finally, Send for when you're going to your machine. So, over on the left we have our tools, and those are pretty straightforward if you are familiar with vector software, but very quickly we have a node tool just underneath our arrow tool. That's for when we want to get into editing shapes. We have different ways of creating lines. So we have a straight line, geometric line, curved shapes, and then drawing an arc, which can be useful for when you want to do things a bit more geometric. We then have our drawing tools. So we have our rectangles, rounded corner, rectangle, oval and a polygon. We have our freehand tools. So we have draw freehand and also draw smooth freehand. So if, like me, you shake a little, that's going to be the preferred option. You then have your text tool. Now, if you're used to a scan and cut, one thing you'll be missing is some way of actually making notes in the software. In Silhouette, we can actually do little post-its, so that's what this tool here does. Okay. Then we're on to the eraser tool, and I will show a bit of work with that, and also the knife tool. So they're both useful for when we want to take elements away from a design and we can start to create either layer designs, or if we want to adapt a design for our personalization. So across the top we have your typical file commands. So you've got your save, your clipboard, undo, redo, select, and then you've got your zoom and moving about the mat. Now if we go down to this bottom left corner, we can just tap that little arrow and it's going to bring out our library. So you can see up top right, we can now have our library tablet as well. If you want to see the library on its own, just click that tab, but most of the time the split view is going to be perfect. Okay, so when we go into this view, we can see all our files, and they are literally put in alphanumeric order. So basically everything's going to get mixed in with everything else. If you are struggling to find things, however, you can actually fine-tune this system a little bit. So if I go to the designs little drop down here and click on there, you can see that we can do little subfolders. They're going to help make our lives a little easier. Okay, so you get some designs that are free with a machine, some that you can go on and purchase, and then others that are your own designs. So if we're going to use the designs, you're going to see here are some files that I imported earlier. Okay, and if we import things like PNG files, it'll actually find the outline for you when you import, so that saves us a step, makes life nice and easy. So just to speed up for today, I'm going to concentrate on using those so that we can kind of get a sheet together nice and quickly. And I'm just going to drag out just a few. It's going to have one of those today, is it? There we go. Let's try that again, see if we can get that one in. There we go. It's just having a bit of a wobbly. Okay, so you're going to notice if you hover over a shape, it's going to try and fill that shape with that pattern. So we just want to make sure we don't do that accidentally. Okay. I'll bring in a couple more if it will behave. Don't give up. Just click first. There we go. Okay. And I think we've got our peony design there, but I think because I used that before, I'm just going to skip that. So we've got our flowers here. Now we can put these off to one side, like so, just temporarily. And you're going to see as you move these that you can see the cut line. That's fine. They can all live in that little side off the mat for now. Now, once we have those imported, you're going to see that basically the images are maybe in low resolution. That's okay, we're going to shrink those down anyway, so I'm not really that bothered. Now, for setting this up, we need to go over to the right hand side of our screen. So first of all, you want to set up your mat. So we're going to be selecting Cameo 4. You're going to choose which feed you are going to use. So the A4 auto sheet feeder would be the actual unit that you can get from Silhouette. Manual is any other type of loading that you do directly with just the Cameo. We're then going to set our mat. So with a Cameo, you can choose to cut with no mat. Now if you do, you want to be aware of that when you are using your print and cut registration, that you have this section set up correctly. Otherwise it's going to be looking for your registration marks in the wrong place, and potentially you're going to be sort of out of your cut as well. So that is just something to bear in mind. Personally, if I'm doing print to cut, I do tend to use the 12x12 mat. Finally, media size. Now this is a really important one. If you are using Silhouette media or certain sheets of printable vinyl, they are letter size rather than A4. Now, to the naked eye they look really similar unless you've got two literally side by side. So always best to double check, because if you get it wrong, again your cut isn't going to line up. So I'm going to go letter, and that's set up our document space. But if we want to do print and cut, which because we've got these images here, that's what we're saying we want to do, you've got to go onto your registration marks tab and turn them on. Okay, now you're going to see some hatched areas around your registration marks, but also across this top bar here, and again same down the bottom. Now what I would say is we want to keep those hatched areas nice and clear, otherwise print to cut isn't going to work for you. We can change the details of our registration, but I would advise that you just leave it as default, and if you do have to change anything, next time you come to use it, there's a restore defaults button, so just tap that and that's going to reset it. Now Next thing to note, if you are printing on something that you're having to flip, not many things out there, but there are some, then you can actually invert your registration marks. Just something to bear in mind. And we can tell it to print bleed it if we want to. To be honest, for these particular designs, you don't need to. So we can just leave that as is. So we've got our images, we've got our page set up. Where do we go from here? So first of all, let's take our first image. We're going to drag it in and we're going to shrink it down. Okay. So we've got kind of a few like angle things going on here. So I want to have one kind of go the other way. So if we go into our replicate, we've got our mirror option here. So I'm going to mirror that to the left and I'm going to delete that one. So we've got two flowers, slightly different angles. Okay, now we're going to do the same with this one, but we're going to go the other way. Select it first, mirror it, delete the original. Okay, and I'm going to shrink that down again. Now, as long as we don't press shift, we're going to be constrained in ratio, and I'm just going to pop that there. So we've got a nice little cluster happening. And now we've got our little berries and leaves that we can use to kind of fill that out into a nice corner shape. So first of all, let's rotate. So we can rotate by hovering over the green handle, and we are just going to use shift so that it kind of snaps to that straight line. It doesn't lock this right same way as some other software does. And we're going to shrink that down. Okay. Just going to move that there. And we can send that to the back. Okay, so you'll notice at this stage I'm not bothering about welding anything or worrying about that. We don't need to. So, scale this down. Up we go. And again, we can send that to the back. So the key presses are basically the same as most other design software. So if you have one of our cheat sheets, you'll find that fairly easy to convert across. Let's take another one of these, and I'm going to rotate it, and probably about there, like so. Now if we send this to the back, it's going to be hidden by those leaves that we just put in. But we can just bring forward one by using Command and close square bracket, or Control and close square bracket on a PC. So then we have a corner. Now, at the moment it's looking a little bit skew with. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to group it. Then I can rotate so that we can use our grid to kind of align and make sure it's kind of looking a little bit more like a proper corner. Doesn't take much, but that's looking good there. Now I'm going to shrink that down. Not too small. Okay, so there's our first group, and this time I'm going to mirror it to the left, and we're going to have a copy group that's going to be rotated the same way and flipped. So we have the first bit of a frame. Okay, so now we could put in a nice circle. So we're just going to use our ellipse tool. And I'm not going to worry too much about getting this the right size first time. But as we start to draw, if we then press and hold shift, you're going to see that it goes straight into a circle. And I'm just going to let go once we have it to a circle. Now, because we've done our drawing and we still have our shape tool selected, if we were to try and draw again, we would get another circle. So just tap the arrow key to take it back. And there we go. We can pull that down. Now we can pop a colour in that and use that to print as well. So if we go up to this top left corner, you have the fill and then the stroke. So I want to put a nice colour in there that's going to match my photo. So let's take my eyedropper. So you just click once and then move around your piece so you get a colour that you're happy with. I think I might go for this mint. There we go. So we've got a nice mint panel. And at the moment, if we were to cut this out, we'd end up with two corner pieces and a circle in the middle. So we kind of need to join everything together into one panel. Now there are a few ways that we can do that. But one of those is going to be actually giving this a base to sit on. So what we can do is if we go to offset, we can actually then offset that shape. Now we want to work with a duplicate, so I'm just going to duplicate that shape. So you see here, if you need to learn your shortcuts in any software, when you go into a menu panel, you'll see some little characters on this right hand side, and that's your shortcut. So there's your duplicate. Just to make sure that these are in the right place, I'm going to first align them. So we've got a line at the top, so we don't have to go to a separate panel. There you go. As long as we align left, we know that that top shape is now lined up right. Just so that we can see what's actually going on, I can use that eyedropper shape, and we could pull in a darker shade out of our print. Okay, so let's offset that shape. And we need it to go a bit wider, so we're kind of supporting more of this corner. So we can actually click and drag that arrow, and I'm paying attention to the bottom edge. I'm happy with that, so we can go apply. And we can put our colour back in. There we go. So I'm going to pop that to the back, and we can get rid of our little duplicate shape. There we go. So we're starting to get a feel for our little kind of base element for our print to cut. And if at this point we go to send, you're going to see that the moment it's saying it's going to cut all these different things here. But if we go to cut edge, and it should, let's go simple, there we go, it'll get there actually. Now it's going to throw a bit of a wobbly because it can't see my Cameo at the moment, but if you go to the cut edge here, what you're going to see is it's actually going to trace around the outside of all of this without having to do any welding or anything else, so we keep everything editable, which is really clever. Okay, if you have trouble connecting your Cameo 4, sometimes you can find it's a bit more stable if you go to USB instead. Just something to bear in mind if you're finding that the Bluetooth is struggling. So I'm nowhere near my machine at the moment, so either way it's not going to connect. But yeah, kind of going to give you the overview there. Okay, so let's go back to design, and I want to create kind of another panel in here. So when we want to do things like shape panels and stuff, sometimes it's easier to build it up in basic shapes. So I'm gonna, first of all, let's take a basic shape like so, and we can fill that the same colour, and if we just click on the square, it's going to give us our most recent colour, and we can push it to the back. Okay, now I want to kind of fill in this gap. So I could do this in a number of ways. I could weld it and then adapt the nodes. I could use the curved line and do it that way, and then use that as a guide to join everything together. Or we could use one of the basic shapes. So at the moment you can see that we've got these basic shapes here. Let's see if we jump to designer, let's see if that gives us more options. So then we get the lasso tool. But drawing shapes don't really change much, but it's okay, we can keep changing our version until we have everything that we want. So that's just something to bear in mind. Do check out on the Silhouette store the differences between the versions. I can kind of go over this really briefly with you. But you're going to notice that as I go up through, this right hand panel is going to fill out with more and more functions, right through to having things like rhinestones, before finally getting to the business edition, which is what you need if you want to export to SVG. Now, while I'm talking about exporting to SVG, very quickly, it enables you to export your own designs from Silhouette Studio into SVG format. It does not, however, give you the ability to export things from the Silhouette store to SVG format. Just something to bear in mind, because obviously there is an additional cost that you do get when you want to download SVG files as opposed to Silhouette files, so that is why it's protected. And if you do accidentally do it, you'll end up with a load of dashed lines. Okay, so let's see how we're going to join this up here. And now I'm going to use my little art tool here. Let's see how it goes. So I want to take it kind of there, and then we can go like so. So that's not quite the right way around. Let's undo that. And we can just escape out of it. So let's click that the other way. So we're going to go from here up to here and around we go. So again, we could have this kind of stretching arch from the tip of this corner here, like so, which might work if you're doing like something Art Deco. Let's show that again. So click once with the tool selected. So click once, and this time I'm going to bring it a bit closer and follow the arc round, and that can go up to about there, like so. Again, that's pretty cool. But we've got extra shapes that we can use in the business edition. So let's see if we can find something that is going to suit better. So we've got this kind of inverted corner square, which might just work perfect. I'm going to draw that like so, to the extent of that bottom. Little box here. Okay, now we have the ability to actually change these corners. Okay, and I want to bring those right in. So if we press and hold shift, it's going to do that equally. I think probably about there, because we want it to be able to be seen, and if we do it there, it's not really going to be visible unless you actually print everything layered. So let's go there. Okay. So we've kind of done that now. Need to convert it to curves so that we can edit that bottom section here, or we can just use subtract. So let's fill that there. Just going to bring in a normal rectangle just to crop it off, because I just need this top section really. And again, I can use a fill in there too so I can see what I'm doing. If we press and hold shift, we can select both, and then on this right hand side you've got the modify panel, which is the same as Pathfinder in Illustrator, Geometry in Affinity Designer, or the edit panel in Canvas. So let's use subtract. That's going to chop a little block there. We can send that to the back. Have a look, see how that is doing in terms of lining up. Oh, that's looking pretty good. So we've got those all in. And let's now kind of weld all these teeny bits together. So if we press and hold shift, we're going to get that section there, and we can go weld. Okay. Now, if you are missing elements because they're overlapping, once you get past, I think it's from probably Designer, you have access to layers so that you can see what's going on underneath. So we've got our polygon, which is the one that we just welded, and there's our rectangle that we haven't welded yet. So we can always just delete that out now that we've got our other shape. Okay, and in our polygon, if we go to our node tool, we're going to see that you've got the node around here, but we've got this bit here as well that isn't quite how we want it. So we can actually take that node like so, just click it, and we can take it out. Now you want to do that for each of these nodes until you get back to the corner. So even this one here can go, this one here can go, and there we go. So we now have a nice straight base. So that's looking pretty. And we could always do that in a couple of colourways. So let's take that group and group it together. And move this up to the top. So remember how we did reflect before? We're going to reflect it underneath, like so. And then we can do things like shape cards if you wanted to, and so on and so forth. But for this one I want to do a different colourway, so we're going to need to ungroup. So that's Command Shift G or Control Shift G. Select your back panel, eyedropper, and let's go for the purple. Give it a totally different look. Okay, gonna go for this circle in the middle, eyedropper, and we could go to a kind of peachy colour. So we have two designs that look radically different to each other. Now, print and cut doesn't have to all be about vinyl, so well, vinyl is amazing. And so are stickers. We can actually start to play a little bit with our choice of materials. So have a look at things like pearlescent card. Okay, now just because we did that mirroring, you can see that our objects are pretty much touching here. So I'm just going to move that down just a touch. Go up and check here, move that up, there we go. So we've got a bit of a border between the two. Okay, so we've got these nice little card front panels that we can cut out and whatnot, but let's just put a little bit of more design into them. So I'm going to go into text and we can just type. So I was a bit late with Mum's happy anniversary. So there we go. Happy anniversary. Okay. I'm going to select all of that, and as usual our text has no fill, so we can do that same process of let's get some of that purple, and we have that colour in there. I want to be line centered, so we can do that. Size is a little big, so we shrink that down in here. Okay, and then we need to choose a nice font. And I think that's looking pretty good. If we click off, then we can drag that around. Happy anniversary. And then Mum and Dad. There we go. And yes, I do spell it like the Americans. One time when I do. So if you do this and you find, oh, my colour hasn't changed, what have I done wrong? It's because that cursor is still flashing away there, so it's treating it as if you want to just change the colour on the next few characters rather than the whole text. But we can do that like that. We can shrink it down. We can change the font. Okay, so at this point, let's just double click it to be able to edit it again. I'm going to put the dad underneath. So I want the dad to be right hand aligned. Oh no, it's all going to jump. Okay, let's do that a little bit different then. So I'm going to start off with Mum. Let's move that. If we press and hold Alt and then click and drag while holding Alt, we're going to get a copy. Double click again. Select all, which is Control A or Command A, and then type. So we've got Mum, Dad. And we need an and in there somewhere. So double click. Set all, and then we can play with the actual layout of these, so we don't have to keep it entirely within that circle. If you're going to go out with one, go out with the other. Okay, and here we can actually do a bit of resizing so that our ampersand actually joins our text together. Like so. Makes it look more like more of a logo than just being random text. Something to bear in mind. And while we're here, yes, I'm late, potato. We can rotate, because if we flip, the text is going around the wrong way. And let's take these elements here. We're going to duplicate them, rotate them round, move them accordingly. Okay, I'm going to zoom in now, because typing upside down always requires that you zoom in. It takes a little bit more thought. So we're going to go tracing. Okay, and we'll nudge that back out again, just to have room for everything. And David. And again, we're going to just move that down, just so that we have enough room. So you can find that sometimes that, you know, you end up just changing the layout between them, just because. So we've got this nice loopy bit between the Y and the D, so then you just need to decide exactly where you're going to put your hand, whether you want it to go here or here, and I think there's probably going to make more sense. Okay. So we've got this far. Where do you go from here? We've set up our print sheet to match the material that we have in front of us. But now what we need to do is set the print to match that material, because all too often it's very easy to just put in your letter paper and forget to change your printer to say that it's letter 2. So if we go to print, it's going to give you a preview so you can check, and that preview is based on your current printer settings, so that's just something to be mindful of. And then we can tap to go print. Now if I cancel that, there's actually a print page setup, so we want to be making sure, and straight away you can see here that even though we set it to letter in, our software is going to default to whatever the default printer is. Now, my printer is being delightful again at the moment, so I can't actually show you on my printer, but I can give you an idea. So you're going to choose your printer in here. You're then going to choose your paper size. Now we said letter, so if we change to US letter, that's going to give us the right size for actually outputting this. Scaling, make sure that stays at 100 and go OK. So that isn't going to send anything to print yet until you actually go to that print, which then opens up print preview. so you can check how everything's fitting. Make sure that your registration marks are within your printable area, that are not being cut off at all, and then you can go to print, and you should have an absolutely perfect print to cut. Let's just cancel that. So hopping into here, and we can go, okay, let's put that on cut, see if we can get it to behave. And we'll set it to the auto blade because typically that's what I use. And hopefully then if is it going to let me set cut? Come on, let me do cut edge. But yeah, cut edge is the one that you need so that it goes around that outside edge without needing to weld. So there you go. A nice simple little printable panel. And I hope you enjoyed that. Do give it a test, see how you get on, and if you have any issues then do come back to me and I'll see if I can help you through them. Take care for now and look forward to seeing you on Friday when we'll be launching something new. So do come along for the show. It will be a live premiere like this where you can actually ask me questions in the comments and I'll be able to reply to you straight away. Take care and bye.